Okay, today we're recording on my balcony, so just bear with me, okay? Now, would rather, would sooner, would prefer. They're all used to express preference in English. I'm sure you all know that. What you don't know is that there are considerable differences between them in terms of grammar, especially between would rather and prefer. Now, today's lesson is devoted to would rather and would sooner, while the next will be all about expressions with prefer. Stay tuned. Hello there, I'm Demi from broadhorizonsenglish. If you wish to express yourself both fluently and accurately, then this is the place to be because every Thursday you find a new video lesson on my channel that will help you reach your learning goals. Now, for the next few minutes, we're going to focus on fixing your grammar, especially regarding the usage of would rather and would sooner. So keep watching. Enough said, now let's roll up our sleeves and get to work. I suggest we start off this lesson by saying a few basic things to introduce the expressions would rather and would sooner. When do we use these expressions and what do they mean? Well, that's easy. We use would rather to express preferences, to talk about preferring one thing to another. If you say, I would rather do A than do B, you're basically saying that you prefer activity A to activity B. Okay, for example, I'd rather rent a flat and live alone than share it with a flatmate. In other words, you like the idea of living alone better than the option of flat sharing. Here, you're expressing a preference in relation to something else. This is why you say, than do B. I would rather do A than do B. But sometimes you may leave out option B completely, not mention it at all. Perhaps because you've mentioned it earlier, or perhaps because it's obvious, in which case you just keep the first part. I would rather do A. I would rather do that. I don't want to take the bus. I would rather cycle to work today. This could still be rephrased using the first construction. I would rather do A than do B. Today, I would rather cycle to work than take the bus. Okay. Now, I would sooner. I would sooner is synonymous to would rather. Not only do would rather and would sooner share the same meaning, but they also share the same constructions. So, whatever applies to would rather, grammar-wise, the same applies to would sooner. To put it another way, you can replace would rather with would sooner in all the examples given in this lesson without any difference in meaning or construction. Example: I don't want to visit England again this year. I would sooner go to Scotland. See? I would sooner go to Scotland. I would rather go to Scotland. I like the idea of traveling to Scotland better than the option of revisiting England. Last but not least, to put more emphasis on your preference, you can add the word much between would and rather. I would much rather. I would much rather do that. I can't stand fancy dress parties. I would much rather stay home. On to the grammar bit now. Ready? When referring to the same person, the same subject, while at the same time referring to the present or future, would rather must be followed by a bare infinitive, that is an infinitive without to. I would rather do something. For example, I'd rather sleep. I'd rather stay home. I'd rather go to a cinema than go to a theater. Alright? Now, as we've just said, the positive form is I'd rather do something. In the negative form, all you have to do is add the word not in between. I'd rather not do something. For example, I'm exhausted. I'd rather not go out tonight. Now, be aware of this extremely common mistake. When expressing a preference in relation to something else, many students say, I would rather do A rather than B. Now that doesn't sound right, does it? Rather is used too many times in the same sentence, and what's more, it doesn't look right either. You have the same word, the word rather, used twice in the same sentence and too close to one another. It can't be right. The correct form is I would rather do A than do B. you must use the particle than, not rather than, just than. Okay. As a memory tip, just imagine that rather and rather are two twins that cannot tolerate the presence of one another in the same room, that is, in the same sentence, okay? Now let's see how you would use would rather in daily conversation. Hey, what are you doing this evening? Would you like to go to the movies? I'd rather not. The short form, and the long response. No, I'd rather not go to cinema tonight. I'm feeling a bit under the weather, so I'd rather stay at home. She would rather stay at home than go to the cinema. Do you recognize this construction? She would rather do A than do B. She would rather stay at home than go to the cinema. From now on, I would like you to pay very close attention to the differences, alright? You may even need to refer back to the previous slides to compare. When you're referring to the same person, the same subject, while at the same time referring to the past, okay, no longer the present or the future, but the past, would rather must be followed by a perfect infinitive, which is formed with have and the past participle of the verb. I'd rather have done something. For example, I'd rather have spent Christmas abroad. The positive form is I'd rather have done something. In the negative form, once again, all you have to do is add the word not in between. I'd rather not have done something. By the way, you should know that the negative form is mostly used to express regrets. To put it another way, I'd rather not have done something means I regret doing it. Example, I'd rather not have gone to that local festival because it was simply awful. I regret going to that festival. Same thing, either way is correct. This is a part of a dialogue in which you can observe how would rather is used to express specific preferences about the past. Okay, let's begin. A little bird told me that you did your Christmas shopping yesterday. You must have had a good time. On the contrary, it was awful. I would rather not have gone to the mall because it was extremely crowded. I think I'd be much better off if I just shopped online. She would rather not have gone to the mall. She regrets going to the mall yesterday. She would rather have shopped online. So far, so good, right? Let us now see what happens when you have two different subjects. When you're referring to a different person, that is a different subject, and you're referring to the present or future, would rather must be followed by that second different subject and past simple tense. I would rather you did something. Example, I'd rather you made the payment in cash. Now, as we've just said, the positive form is I'd rather you did something. In the negation, you just use the negative form of the past simple tense. I'd rather you didn't do something. Simple as that. Examples from daily conversation. Do you mind if I smoke in here, Jane? I'd rather you didn't. The short answer and the long response. I'd rather you didn't smoke in the living room. Feel free to smoke on the balcony though. Jane would rather her friend didn't smoke inside the house. When you're referring to a different person that is a different subject, but this time you're referring to the past, would rather must be followed by that second different subject and past perfect. So we go one step further back tense-wise. I would rather you had done something. Example, I'd rather you had arrived before midnight yesterday. The positive form is I would rather you had done something, while the negation is formed with a negative form of the past perfect tense. I would rather you hadn't done something. Examples. Is it okay that I borrowed your car last night? You're not angry with me, are you? No, I'm not angry, but I would rather you had asked me first. I might have needed it. He would rather she hadn't borrowed his car last night without his permission. That's all for now, so if you'd like me to make more grammar lessons like this one, then please give this video a big thumbs up and make sure you subscribe so that you don't miss the next lesson on would prefer. Bye for now.